Hello there. It's relatively cold, there's a slight breeze, it's Tuesday evening, and this is episode 19 of the VictorPrep Vocab podcast. I'm Sam, as always, and let's get started by reviewing the previous words. They were larceny, obdurate, panegyric, and rococo. Larceny, that means burglary, robbery. It means to take something from someone else that obviously doesn't belong to you. Obdurate, that means stubborn. It means unmoved by persuasion, unyielding, someone who won't change their course of action no matter what you say to them. Panegyric. A panegyric is a public speech or published piece of writing that praises someone or something. Rococo. Rococo usually refers to furniture or architecture, and it means a particularly elaborate and ornamental style, very embellished and elaborate, often flowery or rich. Those were our words from last time. Now let's move on to the new words. Our first new word is bolster. Bolster. That is spelled B-O-L-S-T-E-R. Bolster. This is a noun, and it has a number of meanings, but we'll go over two today, two common meanings. The first meaning is a noun, and that means a long, thick pillow that's often placed under other pillows. So think of your regular kind of pillow that you sleep on, and imagine a pillow that's twice as long, and you might place at the bottom of a pile of pillows to support the other pillows. That's a bolster. Now, this is, I think, more of an old-fashioned meaning. Bolsters aren't that much of a common thing anymore. I'm just giving you this meaning just so you know it, but it's generally not going to be a word you'll encounter on a day-to-day basis. But I just thought I'd mention it anyway. The more interesting usage of the word bolster is as a verb, and bolster in this sense means to support, to prop up, or to strengthen. And often this means in the sense of strengthening an argument or a debate. So if you're having an argument with someone or a debate, and you provide a piece of evidence that helps support your argument, you could say that bolstered your argument. Or if your friend is having a vigorous discussion about something, and you come in to support him, you are bolstering your friend. A little way of remembering bolster and what it means, something quick I just thought of, is thinking that it rhymes with holster, as in a holster for a gun. Now, if you have a gun and imagine a cowboy who's wearing a holster, that holster is supporting the gun. And we know that bolster means to support or strengthen or prop up. So a holster is, in a sense, bolstering the gun. I know that sounds a bit weird, but yeah. So think holster, bolster. A holster supports a gun. To bolster means to support or strengthen. So that's a quick little way I thought of trying to remember what bolster means. But think of a time when you were having an argument and you thought of a fact or a piece of evidence that helped support your argument, that bolstered your argument. Our second word for today is plastic. Plastic. P-L-A-S-T-I-C. Plastic. Now, we're not talking about the material. We all know that we have plastic bottles, plastic wrapping for everything. I don't mean plastic in that sense. I mean plastic as an adjective, meaning looking or tasting artificial. So, some synonyms of this are artificial, false, fake, superficial, So you might say the food looked plastic. It didn't look real. It looked fake. Another meaning for plastic, and I seem to have picked a couple of words that have multiple meanings in today's podcast, so apologies for any confusion, but there are two meanings of plastic. Plastic, looking, seeming artificial, and also plastic meaning easily shaped or molded. So, if you heat up rock, many of you will know that it turns into lava. That is, the stuff that comes out of a volcano. Now, when you heat up rock that way, you could say it becomes plastic. You may remember having the toy Play-Doh as a child. Play-Doh is plastic. It's easily shaped and molded, as is clay. It's another material which could be described as being plastic. By the way, something to note, when I give you words that have more than one meaning, I often give you the most important meanings to know, because often words can have many different meanings. But usually the way language works is one meaning becomes the most common meaning or the most useful meaning. So when I give you multiple meanings for a word, it's just because I feel that those meanings are the most common and probably the most useful. So for plastic today, we have looking or maybe even tasting artificial. So you could say if someone had a smile which you considered fake, you could say it looked like a plastic smile. And we have plastic meaning easily shaped or molded. Like if you imagine you applied heat to a plastic bottle with a flame, that plastic would start to melt and that plastic would become more plastic. Maybe that helps you remember it. Our third word is luminous. Luminous. That is spelled L-U-M, lum, I-N, in-us, O-U-S, luminous, luminous. Luminous means full of light, bright or shining, and it especially implies something that's bright in the dark or at night. It can mean when a color is very bright. When a color is so bright, it almost hurts your eyes. That color is luminous. Some synonyms of luminous are shining, bright, brilliant, radiant, dazzling, glowing, gleaming, lustrous. Now, everyone has probably seen policemen or other officials who are wearing those bright, yellowy green jackets, or bikers riding at night who are wearing those bright colors. Often those colors could be described as being luminous. Now, the word luminous comes from Latin. There's a word in Latin, lumen, meaning light. And if you think about it, there are probably a number of other words that draw on that same root. So if you think of the word illuminate, to illuminate means to light up. So you could say the flashlight illuminated the dark garden. So if you think illuminate, luminescent, in fact, if you're studying physics or you're interested in physics, the lumen is actually a unit of light. It's how they measure the amount of light. So lumen, luminescent, luminous, they're all words to do with light. So luminous, that means full of light, bright or shining. Our final word for today is symbiosis. Symbiosis. That is spelled S-Y-M, sim, bio, B-I-O, sis, S-I-S. Symbiosis. Symbiosis. Now, symbiosis is a little complicated to explain, but to explain it, I'm going to give you some examples. So, the basic definition is when there are two organisms living in close proximity to each other, and by associating with each other, they have an advantage. So, we have bacteria as humans that live in our stomach. And we have a symbiosis with that bacteria. We have a symbiotic relationship because they get the benefit of food, safety, a nice environment to live in our stomach. And humans get the advantage that the bacteria help break down certain food and chemicals that we put into our body. So we live in symbiosis. Another example of a symbiotic relationship, or symbiosis, is your family pet. You live in a close proximity to your family pet, and you both give each other advantages. Your dog or cat has the advantage of a safe environment. You give your pet safety, you give your pet food, you give your pet water, and your pet gives you fun and a friend and good feelings. So you both get something from the relationship. The idea of symbiosis is two things, organisms, animals, whatever, could be bacteria, could be plants, but always an organism generally. This word is it's a biological term, basically. And indeed, it comes from a Greek word, which I don't know how to pronounce, symbiosis. It's actually symbiosis, I think, which means a living together. So if you think of any two creatures or two organisms or two plants that live in close proximity to each other, but each provides the other with an advantage, that is symbiosis. Even another example, do you have a roommate? If you're in college or otherwise, and you have a roommate, and you are friends, and you provide each other with benefits, well, I mean, if the relationship benefits you both, so you get along well, maybe your roommate is very good at cooking great meals, so that's their contribution to living together, and maybe you keep the house tidy, so you both provide each other with an advantage. So you could say that is symbiosis, two organisms living in close proximity to the advantage of both. Now onto our test sentences. McDonald's food tends to look somewhat fake and artificial in their advertisements. When my friend, Stefan, was in trouble with a teacher for fighting, I helped support his defense by saying that he didn't start the fight and in fact was only defending himself. When sailing at night, or when there's a risk of falling into the sea, it's important to wear clothing which shines brightly when illuminated. This is usually achieved by the addition of reflective strips, which are sewn onto most wet weather gear. I have a great arrangement with my cats. I provide them with shelter and food, and they provide me with cuteness and cuddles. So, those were our words and our test sentences for today. I'm really, really sorry the podcast ran on longer than normal. I think I tried extra hard to explain some of those words today, and plus some of the words had more than one meaning. So very sorry about that. So, as always, please provide any feedback to my email address at sam.fold@gmail.com. Thank you a few of my listeners who've emailed me recently with extremely kind emails. So shout out to Frank, Barvik, and Yang. I hope I got your names right. And I have set up a website at VictorPrep.com, so please check that out, although there's nothing much there yet. And please, if you can, leave a review on the iTunes page if you want, only if you feel comfortable with that. I don't want to beg. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up very quickly. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.